Welcome back. Mental health symptoms are increasing since the beginning of the coronavirus, according to the Centers for Disease Control. About 41% of adults report struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues in June. Mallory Barg Bulman is Research Director of Finance Process Excellence at Gartner. Mallory, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. When I think about your areas of expertise and the things that you and I have talked about over the years, this is not something that I would think would fit into your typical portfolio. No disrespect intended. Why is this something that's important to you?
Sure, and no disrespect taken. Thanks for having me, Francis. So, what you and I have talked about a lot is how can we make the workforce as productive and, engaged as possible. And one of the things that we've always talked about is change management. That is still absolutely important. But Gartner found that in addition to the large changes that we experience, the big changes that we have a whole change management plan in place for, employees really are also contending with small changes during their day. And those small changes have about 2 times the effect of those big changes. So leaders, managers, peers really need tools in their toolbox to help employees sustain their mental energy through all of those small, stressful changes that are happening in their day-to-day life.
Mallory, the overwhelming sentiment that I hear from people as we do this remote environment like you and I did before we came on the air, we have a little chat, people are just exhausted. This is wearing people down, being on virtual calls all the time, kids home, all of these things. What does that do for an employee's willingness, susceptibility to be open to the kinds of change management issues you just described?
Yeah, it's a great question, Francis. We have seen in our research that employees, they care about their work. They want to do a good job. And in early days when there's lots of stress, lots of change, in some cases, they're really engaged by it. They really want to do a good job. I interview a lot of controllers in my work. We saw that for the first quarter close at the end of March, which was right as things were really, changing at a rapid pace, they closed the books in some cases faster than they expected. Their teams were really fully engaged. But the truth is, people can't sustain that level of change, that level of uncertainty for forever. There really is a breaking point, and managers need to be able to contend with supporting their employees during times of change in order to help sustain and build that mental energy.
I know that mental wellness is something that private sector companies are thinking about an awful lot. What are they good at that would apply in agencies, and what are they doing that maybe wouldn't apply in a public sector environment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've always said about federal agencies, we're not going to put ping pong tables and that kind of thing in. And the truth is, that's not what the private sector is thinking about either. They're really getting back to basics, making sure that they're listening to employees. We talked to 2 companies in particular that really gave their managers a simple form to keep track of their employees' mental energy. So when people are meeting with their supervisees every week, really taking note of how does their stress level seem? Where is that person putting their discretionary effort? And how are they spending their time? Is it taking longer than it has in the past to get that work done? And then coming up with an escalation plan that if you see that employee several weeks in a row is really down, it's taking them longer to get their work done, maybe they're really saying that they're burnt out, coming up with a plan to address it. Maybe it involves, redistributing the workload, or even just letting that employee know that you see that they're under a time of stress. Just having a plan and making sure that you're listening really makes a difference.
That punch list may be the answer to my next question, but I'll ask it anyway, Mallory. What are the leading indicators that people should be looking for in their employees to judge, to try to get ahead of the curve and help somebody before they really need it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as you and I have talked about before, the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey is really an important indicator. It comes every year. But a lot of time with employee feedback surveys, by the time those results come out, it's going to be too late. So you do want regular monitoring of employee behaviors, whether it's, again, the discretionary effort, where they're putting their time, how their morale, how their stress level seems. Those are really things that supervisors and peers, frankly, can be keeping track of for one another.
30 seconds left. What will you watch moving forward in the federal government space to see how agencies are doing at this issue?
Sure, we're about to have a large presidential transition, regardless of who wins the election. There are 4,000 political appointees who, by and large, have a turnover of 18 months. That is a tremendous amount of change for federal employees. What I will be watching for is the extent to which federal managers are equipped and ready to support their workforce through those changes.
Mallory, thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you back on.
Thank you. Great to be here.